Welcome everyone to What the Force, and welcome to our segment, What the Fandom, where we explore different aspects of the fandom and how we make Star Wars real for us. And today, we will be speaking of Star Wars Destiny and the dice and card game, released by Fantasy Flight Games. We have, I would say, an expert in it, Jedi Geek Girl, who is the founder, host, and producer of I Rebel, the only female-led and fully produced Star Wars gaming podcast centered around Star Wars Destiny. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It is an honor coming on and talking about my favorite game, at least for right now.
Star Wars Destiny is a really interesting game because it's like headcanon in a way. Like, can you imagine two amazing fighters or heroes or villains and pit them against two other heroes, fighters, or villains in the Star Wars galaxy in kind of different terrains or locations? And what are the different sort of changeable factors that would influence the results of that battle? Could you tell the fans who don't know what Star Wars Destiny is all about, what it's all about?
Sure. Star Wars Destiny is a CCG, which is the same thing as Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, and Yu-Gi-Oh! And other games. A CCG is a collectible card game where basically you have a game that is created and constantly improved upon through booster packs and other packages where you can build your own deck. So with Luke and Rey, you can play that, or if you want to play with Darth Vader and a Stormtrooper, you can do that and you can build your deck accordingly. All the content are randomized and you are basically in control of your deck outside of some rules compared to other games. You see deck building where the content are fixed. Yes, you still build your deck while you're playing it, but the content are fixed. Like I mentioned before, it's like Pokemon and Magic, so the packs are random and you never know what you're going to get. There is a lottery aspect to it. Also, you have the collectability of it, so it attracts a lot of collectors, like the CCG players who not only play, but they collect. And you have people who play who don't connect. So it's like it hits all these things. Like you get a high of a game, you get a challenge of a collecting, and you get the high off of a lottery. So it's just mismatched thing and wrapped in a Star Wars wrapper.
Yeah, and the art on the cards is really exceptional, in my opinion. I really love it.
They definitely have stepped it up. The artwork, especially the newer artwork, is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. What's the goal? I guess I kind of briefly explained it, but from when you're actually playing the game, the goal is to kind of choose these two different sets of fighters to kind of compete in this almost imaginary battle. What is appealing about that kind of setting?
The goal of the game is to get your opponent's characters down to 0 or deck them out. That's how you win. Basically capturing a imaginary battle, and like you would in an imaginary battle, the goal is to knock your opponent out, and those are the ways you can do it. What attracts people to this game is the mechanics of the game, the complexity of the game, and trying to figure out a puzzle of it. You also have the thematic aspect where a lot of our players are Star Wars fans. You have the brand of Star Wars, you have the challenge of, and you have the social aspect, which involves trading and
getting together.
Yeah.
Yeah, getting together and going to tournaments, which is something that you've done as well.
I have, yes.
Yeah. And also, like, because of I Rebel and the work that you do, you also have sort of an online community of people that are also talking about the strategies of the game and the meta-analysis of it.
Exactly. It's a whole community that is a whole new world because you have people who are competitive, you have people who are collectors, you have people who play casually with their spouse and children, you have people who just draft very casual, just come as you are outside of a draft kit and draft and have fun, and you don't have to worry about picking up those cards again if you don't want to. It's really wide and diverse that you basically can find what you would like about this game and just be finding your own niche.
How did you fall into this? Could you tell me the story of how it came across to you?
Sure. So I originally stumbled across Star Wars Destiny through game. I was playing the LCG, which was another game by Fantasy Flight Game where the products were fixed, but you could still create your deck however you wanted. And as I usually do, I get really obsessive about things. So I had all the notifications games turn on. So when they announced this game, I heard about it right away, and I was hooked right away because I came from a CCG background.
Right.
And shortly after, I created a Facebook group, and we were off to the race.
So how does it compare to other collectible card games like Magic the Gathering? Do you think that it's on par with complexity, buying requirements? Is it maybe a little bit more introductory? Like what is the level of sort of barriers to entry for people who might be interested in checking it out?
I would say that the complexity of the game, it's not that bad. It's not the same level as Yu-Gi-Oh! It's about the same level as a pick. You basically have these characters that you pick. Like, for example, Luke Skywalker. And you have these three colors. You have blue, red, and yellow that you can only put into your deck that has characters of the same color. So if you want to run a Han, Luke would be blue, Han would be yellow, and you could run blue and yellow cards. And not only that, but you could also run gray cards if you want, which are basically like colorless. And then they're both heroes, so you can run hero cards. All those different categories for deck building, which adds so much to the game.
Nice. So it seems like it's got this nice layer of almost headcanon in it. Like imagine a world where we could put these two different heroes together. What would that fighting team look like?
Exactly. It is the best way to not only put two characters, you can have up to 4 or 5 different characters.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But you could also reenact battles. Like in this last set, Gungans were introduced to the game. And in the previous set, you had battle droids. So theoretically, if you wanted to, you could do battle Gungans, just for a thematic perspective. You could always run like Luke and Leia on a team against Darth Vader and a Stormtrooper, or Count Dooku and Grievous against Anakin and Obi-Wan.
Nice. Please tell me there's Ewoks. Is there Ewoks?
Not yet.
Oh, we need murder bears. What is the community like generally? Is it something that like people could just go to a local gaming store? Do they need to kind of like have a group of, because you can't play against yourself, right? So how do you find people that you are interested, if you're interested in checking this game out and playing?
There are many different avenues to learn how to play this game and to pick it up. It is a friendly community, and pretty much reaching out to any content, they can help you get into the game and point you the right direction. But if you are listening to this podcast and are interested in it, I would go to fantasyflight.com, recommend checking out Team Covenant How to Play series, which basically introduce people to the game and the complexity of it and the different layers. And the next thing I would do is I would actually try to look locally. I would go to a game shop and ask them, hey, do you have Star Wars Destiny? Do you have any people that come in and play? And I would look for a local group. And then once you're familiar with the game, join the larger group. Because you know how any group that has like more than 3,000 people, which the large Star Wars Destiny Facebook group has like over 10,000.
Wow.
You know how it is. And usually I would recommend, getting a game before jumping into that large pool, because it can be absolutely brutal and you can kind of get a little lost in it.
Yeah. No, or checking it out with a group of friends locally, trying it out on your own. I don't like from the videos that I watched, which I'm definitely going to link in the liner notes. Thanks for sending those, by the way. That were really, really great. Fantasy Flight Games actually has walkthrough videos on how to play the game, what it's all about, to get you kind of into understanding what it is. It's not incredibly complex, but it is something that, it is good to take a look at from a video perspective. And the video isn't very long. I think it's only like 5-6 minutes. Yeah.
If I may use you, if you were to get into the game, because I know a little bit more about you, I would probably recommend playing with it at home. with your spouse or children if you had it, to try to get familiar with it. And then after you're familiar with it, then go down to a local game shop, league night, tournament, slowly expand, and then eventually travel and stuff like that if you hypothetically wanted to, because otherwise it can be overwhelming and you get discouraged. Like if you play against somebody and you don't have an understanding of the game, it can be very frustrating if they know what they are doing and they aren't understanding, which can be something. But already is pretty friendly, and you should be fine if you don't choose to go that route. But I'm a big proponent of taking it slowly.
Right. And kind of learning it as you go, and learning to love the game just for the sake of it being a game, that it is fun just to play on your own. And you don't necessarily need to go competitive. But if you are interested in this, headcanon battle idea, face to face or reenacting battles that happen, it is open to that idea that you can do that, which is really cool. So you mentioned previously that on one of your podcasts that you'd really like to almost have a noob site walkthrough where you would like to set up kind of a introductory, this is where you should go and these are the things that you should do. Is there like top 3 things that you would want to kind of tell people if they were getting into it, other than, kind of what you just shared?
I think it is important to have a catch-all site. If I wanted to learn how to play, there is a site for that. If I wanted to find out where I can play the game, there's a different site for that. There are catch-all sites like Facebook where you ask, but there isn't one well-defined site. Question. Number 1, how to play. Frequently asked sessions, kind of like the video that I showed you that FFG did and Team Covenant did. They did a fantastic series, but those videos are kind of long and it's like a series. So perhaps basically all the rules referenced, but more searchable and more managed. The next thing is, where can I go to buy product or to find a place to play? The last thing is content videos to watch. If I want to find podcasts to watch, if I want to go to a website and read about Star Wars Destiny, what are they? So if you could picture in your head a website, on the top you would have like a little bar with different categories. On the left, hypothetically, you could have like locations, where to find product, where to buy product, and on the right hand you would have a list of all the content producers separated by podcast, website, YouTube. It would be awesome to have that all in one. And it is such an undertaking that I really hope that somebody in the community can do that, because it is such a wonderful game and I want to see it to grow. But it is so time consuming that I can't do it. I'm sure no other content producers have a huge teams.
Yeah, exactly. But it sounds like that's something that like the game itself needs to kind of maybe take it to a level of just more familiarity, because I didn't even know about the game until you posted about it in the shared female fan group that we're both part of on Facebook. Like, I didn't even know about it, and I'm familiar with other Fantasy Flight games like X-Wing and the Star Wars RPG. So it was just like, that's interesting.
They are a smaller company, but even despite the fact that they have been advertising in every comic issue of Star Wars, usually on the back or like the first couple of pages, it is still not near as much a smaller company. I think if the advertising was a bit more prevalent, then people would know it, but it's definitely a wonderful game. I highly recommend it just for the thematic perspective. I mean, who doesn't want to take Rey from The Last Jedi and Last Jedi and pair them against Snoke and Kylo? Guess what? This last set, you can do that.
That's awesome. You've talked about metas a fair amount in your podcast, and kind of this idea of analysis and like figuring out what the best combinations are and trying to figure out sort of the strategy of the meta of the game. I really love this concept, because a lot of people, it can be applied to pretty much any part of the fandom. We, as fans, like to overthink or think about, oh, hey, how is this all going to work out? What are the Easter eggs that we can see in canon in general, but specifically for Star Wars Destiny, it has this like strategic element, which is just really wonderful. What do metas really detail out to, or what are they for people that aren't aware of metas in, say, a gaming aspect?
Meta in terms of gaming is a unique definition because as far as I know, it isn't defined the same way as you would find in a dictionary. I would define simply as the playing field. What is doing good? What are the cards that are good seeing play? What is seeing play? If I say the meta is pure aggro, that means that there are a lot of aggro decks. If I say that the meta is Luke Skywalker, Snoke, and Cad Bane, that just means that they are really good and you are going to encounter them. So basically, when you are playing a card game that has a social aspect with a meta, the state of the social gaming is, if that makes sense. So when you say you don't have anything that is meta, you're basically bringing something that isn't seeing play that people may not know how to handle.
Oh, so people have talked about sort of the combinations previously in a meta. Whereas if they're not, then that's something people haven't seen before. Am I getting that right?
I'm not familiar too much with sport. I have watched a Super Bowl here or there, but basically, if you think of it as a football game, a meta would be okay. So if you're playing against the Minnesota Vikings, you'd be like, okay, their meta is all passing.
Oh, it's like their strategy.
There you go. Something like that. So basically, a meta heading into. So if the meta of the game is Luke Skywalker and Rey, that means you're going to see a lot of them in the field. That means that they are good plays that people are playing. Just because something is meta necessarily equal to success, and that doesn't always necessarily mean equal to good. It can be both, either or, and sometimes none at all, depending, but very unlikely. So,
well, it sounds like just such an awesome game, and I love this idea of doing the battles. So I'm definitely going to be checking out the game myself. But I wanted to just kind of pivot a little bit and talk about iRebel and the site that you started, as well as the podcast. How did that get started?
iRebel is a podcast like no other. It has quite a simple story, but a very complex one. iRebel was started basically out of defiance, if you will, hence the name. And basically, when you are handicapped, I'm hard of hearing in my left ear and partly in my right, and I don't always articulate. And you're always told that you can't do this. You're not supposed to do this. You might have problems with people and things happen where you can no longer do that. And basically, I felt like, no, I'm going to do this. I'm not going to be quiet. And so I created iRebel to keep doing what I love. And what I love is doing podcasting. And I love Star Wars Destiny. And I decided to learn how to podcast, to do everything myself and learn, because I love doing podcasting. I love doing this. I realize that my speech and my voice isn't always the best. I know that I don't articulate the best, but I do it because I love it. And other people that may have handicaps or other situations, like a lot of my supporters are women, because there is no other podcast that is led primarily by a woman or produced by a woman. I want to be there to be the voice in my passion for inspiration and for visibility, because that is something that is very important to me. In fact, I was almost not going to do this until I heard another podcast. One of the things that we need an all-female podcast. And while I do have guys on my podcast, at the end of the day, I'm the constant. I'm the reason for the brand. I do all of it, and it's important to have that. And if people are criticizing that, you shouldn't be doing this.
Thank you for sharing that so much. It speaks to me myself. I have a learning disability where I can't read and write very well. And when I was assessed and I finally found out what it was all about, the lady that assessed me told me I should never take a job where I have to write. Which made me want to write even more. I don't know, maybe I rebel as well. But what you're telling me is so powerful. And I love that you do this, because to me, the passion comes through in your voice, the love of what you do. And we need more people to step up to the plate and really talk, hear voices, unique, different, awesome, all of them. It's so awesome.
It is my opinion that eventually we need to stand up and do things that we shouldn't be doing, or do things that we can be out there for other people to see. And to tie it into Star Wars with my hearing, I grew up with the prequel trilogy. I grew up hard of hearing. So, hey, you're not supposed to like the prequels because they're bad and you feel ashamed. So when you're interacting with other people and you're hard of hearing and your speech sounds funny, you get judged, you get thought of and treated as less. So have a passion of wanting to do something that puts yourself out there, you automatically withdraw. You hide your fandom for the prequel trilogy because you get ashamed for it, and you hide your passion of wanting to do what you want to do because you shouldn't do it because of your handicap. And eventually you get to an age where you're like, you know what? I like the prequels. I love the prequels. You know what I'm saying? And you know what? I'm going to do podcasting even if I sound funny and I screw up.
What you just told me was so powerful, because it's like, I feel like a lot of voices stay quiet because they've been told for so many years that Star Wars, gaming, anything isn't for them, or that they shouldn't, I don't know, have the right to talk about it. Thank you for being out there.
It's my honor. I love doing it, and it is very rewarding, and I am constantly humbled by the people that I hear who say what you just got done saying, and all the gratitude that I expect. The most popular in the community. I am not the most listened to. I'm not the most followed, but it's not about that. It's about doing what I love and give back to the community in such a unique way that I am visible in that sense, I guess.
You are. And not only that, you're inspirational. I really love your story. It's wonderful, and I feel like more people should know it. I know you were on StarWars.com, but more people should call out, like, hey, if Jedi Geek Girl can do this, why aren't there more, hey, women, people of color, you have a voice to tell, we want to hear your voice. You're passionate about art? Let's hear it. You're passionate about music? Let's hear it. It's how we expand the fandom to include all different perspectives. Because without your perspective, we wouldn't get as many awesome takes on Star Wars Destiny and being a Jedi Geek Girl in general.
I think one thing to keep in mind is if you are passionate about something and you have some sort of challenge or you have some sort of classification or whatever, that as long as you posit and you spread your message and you are visible, there's always somebody like you. There's always somebody who can relate to you, even if they're not exactly like you. And it is not easy. You are putting yourself out there as a risk. Even if you are there even if you inspire one person and are there for them to see, that is what it is all about. It's all about being there for other people, to be visible for them and to learn if they want to seek advice.
Yeah, and even if it's just, hey, saying, hey, I like Star Wars, that's still coming out there, and saying that. Yeah, it's great. I love that you not only, run the podcast and, the fan site, but you also do this fun thing where you do giveaways. Yeah, it's awesome. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I am a firm believer in charity. It is something that when I used to work with another podcast that I talked to them about, it was very important to give back and to promote that interactivity of them. Because if you listen to a podcast, it's basically a one-way street. You are listening to what they are saying, you are listening to them saying, but there's no back and forth unless you like leave a feedback or something like that. There's no sense of interaction. When you have a giveaway, you are receiving something from that podcast. It makes it a lot more personal, and it also promotes community. And I really love doing it because I believe that it is healthy and it involves your listeners, your followers, the community. Who doesn't like free stuff,
But I like that it's like, hey, you could get something really cool out of this, some unique tokens or cards or, I really like that it is interactive and that people can feel a part of the podcast in that way. It's really great. I wish I could figure out how to do giveaways where it actually made sense with what I talk about, but I just don't know.
Well, usually most people I would say that if you wanted to do a giveaway, but you didn't have a firm identity into like a card game or books or comics, that whatever you may feel like somebody else might like, I have a lot of Star Wars stuff that's laying around that I don't need because I have doubles of, but I just give away
Mhm.
to people because you are still giving thing away that value a lot more because they receive it as a gift. Like if I have a book here, like, let's say I have two Lost Stars book, just around the book number thing, right? That first book I'm going to read, I'm going to show off on my shelf, but the second one is just sitting there. If I give it to
Mhm.
somebody, if I give it away to somebody, even if I'm not doing a book podcast, when they receive that item, they are immediately attached to it, even if they never read it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I like to ask people that come on the show for these fandom segments, what is your first memory of Star Wars?
That is really hard. The only thing I remember is rewatching the films over and over and over and over again. I don't remember watching them the first time. I fairly remember because, okay, when I first Star Wars, it was when I was a little girl, and you know how you are when you're a little kid, and your parents have DVDs, VHSs, whatever.
Yeah.
Probably not the kids
Yeah.
these days, but you go through them and then you take them up and you watch them. So I was going VHSs and I was watching them, and all suddenly I came across Star Wars. And like I said, I don't remember the first time, but I remember we watching them over and over and over again, and not really caring for New Hope because it was so slow. I was always looking forward to Empire and Return of the Jedi.
Empire and Jedi too?
Yeah, I like both of them.
Did you like the Ewoks? I liked the Ewoks when I was a kid.
I was actually more engrossed Luke toy, just because of what was going on in my personal life with my dad.
Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Oh, well, my parents were divorced, and
Mhm.
I was close to my dad, and he went to prison. And my mom had full custody of me, and there was that longing of wanting to connect with my father. And there was just something about Luke and Vader in Return of the Jedi that really, and
That
when Luke,
resolution, right?
yes, yes,
Yeah.
when Luke, burns his father, that
Oh
always really
man.
hit me because I connected to it.
Yeah. Like right in the heart because it's, you're not only he found peace, with what had happened and he forgave his father.
Yeah, so I guess how I connected is because even though Luke had Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, father was never in his life. And though my
Yeah.
dad was in my life when I was younger, he wasn't there. But he reconnected with him and he found him. But there was that lost connection that he had that I related to, with my father not being in my life.
Oh, yeah. That that hits me right in the heart. Oh, thank you for sharing. On a different note, what is your favorite memory of Star Wars? I know you mentioned the prequels. Is it somewhere in there?
I would have to say that not that long ago, I would have had a little difficulty trying to nail that down. I think the midnight showing of Revenge of the Sith is up there, but and that all changed a couple weeks ago. Ashley Eckstein.
Oh my God. You got to tell me about it. Just tell me.
Let's back a little bit. So a couple months ago, I found out that Ashley Eckstein was doing a book tour for her universe, and I didn't think too much about it because we don't get a lot of traffic up here when it comes to like book signings and stuff like that. So I really didn't think about it until I found out on Sunday that she was in the area the previous Saturday, the day before. And I was absolutely devastated because she was right in my backyard. She went to which was across the street from my comic store.
Oh,
And I was
no.
really devastated because I really wanted to meet her. I respect a lot of what she does. She is a role model of mine and she inspires me. So I was absolutely devastated, was like so disappointed. And then I looked on her website and I saw that she was coming back to Minnesota for the Mall of America.
Mm-hmm.
So I planned on going to the Mall of America to meet. Or the day before, I was thinking about not going because my work was back up and I don't know if I wanted to take the time off because I knew that I didn't have to take off. So the night before, I looked at my schedule and I actually had a free than I thought. So I waited in line and I got my book signed and my picture taken, and I was so nervous, put my hand out and I showed her, and I was talking 100 miles a minute, and afterwards I was still shaking. So
Oh, she seems like the nicest person. I'm so happy you got to meet her.
she's so small too.
Is she small?
Yeah, she is. So
It feels like she has a very large personality. Like she's larger than life.
I think that she ladder Clone Wars Ahsoka relatively well.
She could do the live action version of Ahsoka, you think, if they ever decided to make it? I know they probably won't, but...
Well, I'm saying that she's on the short end, on Ahsoka just fine.
Yeah?
Yeah, so that's what I thought, but...
What are you most looking forward to? I know you're a canon fiend. Like, we've talked, on our shared Facebook group that we're part of. What are you most looking forward to about future canon?
I am really looking forward to the Rian Johnson trilogy. I love The Last Jedi. I'm one of the few, no, obviously, but no, The Last Jedi. I loved the directions that it went. I loved how different it was. I loved it was Star Wars like we have never seen, and some people did not like that. I really enjoyed it, and I'm looking to see where Rian Johnson will go with Star Wars without having to tell us build. Once he gets his own trilogy off the ground and we are able to see it, I think a lot of people will respect his storytelling if they can get past The Last Jedi.
I don't think that The Last Jedi was as hated as people think it is, because it's done really well financially. And that's usually like where people decide to spend their money is usually a good indicator that people actually liked things. They just might not be as loud as the haters.
Oh, I agree 100%. I think that it's probably like more like at the absolute worst, I think it's like 70-30 because you have the casual people who do not have a presence online. Unfortunately, like 10 or 15% of them, probably being a little generous, are very loud.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're just loud and unfortunate. And I think that like just the overwhelming love of the storytelling, and I loved the new direction. I loved how weird it got. I loved how many layers are built into The Last Jedi that kept me thinking. It's one of the reasons I decided to start a podcast. Although I've always talked about Star Wars. I've been a fan since I was probably 2 years old. Similar story in rewatching the VHSs, but we had beta tapes back then. And, you know, I went to the extended editions in the theater when they came in, like the special editions with my dad. It was a special event for us. I went to all of the prequels opening night, saw them multiple times in the theater, loved the Clone Wars. Like I'm a huge Star Wars fan, but it got around to The Last Jedi and I couldn't stop talking about all of the interesting things that I saw and how much it meant to me that my husband basically said, you better just start podcasting about it because I'm sick of hearing about it.
There is so much in that film to explore. There are constantly things that people are bringing up that is new and fresh. Like, I love the visual storytelling of Rian Johnson. The most obvious one, and there are so many. There was found out a couple weeks ago with Rey and Kylo, but the Holdo maneuver. And,
yeah.
yes, and the Leia flying through the Supremacy hologram. That is just one of very many different things. And what I talked about earlier about the Rey and Kylo connection with where Rey is training with the lightsaber, those are the exact same movement that Kylo does against Luke. That is just, it's just so brilliant. And see, now you got me gushing about it.
That's okay though. But that's what, you know, I love about Star Wars is that, you know, and especially this fandom things, because it's like, you know, we can talk about the movies and we can talk about the art and we can talk about Star Wars Destiny. And, you know, if we were actually to put Kylo and Rey against Snoke and like one of his Praetorian Guard, it's like you could actually play that in Star Wars Destiny. But it's just, you know, it's just so much fun just to geek out about things and just have this, because Star Wars to me is just exuberant joy, you know, and that's what it should be about.
I agree 100%. And that's why when I see so many people focusing on the negative, it's like, this is not what being a fan is. There are things in Star care for. There's not much except Salacious Crumb. That's a little joke of mine. Like, I don't understand how you can't enjoy and celebrate the things that you enjoy. Like, if you are a Legends fan, why not talk about the universe instead of critiquing and criticizing and hating what you don't like? You know, save what we love, not
and
attack what we hate.
And it's never been like Lucas has said, oh, hey, Legends, you know, don't look at that. They're like, no, it's Legends. We're still going to print them if people want to see them. We're still going to respect that it came before, but we have to go in this different direction. And I respect that so much because the complexity of storytelling that we're getting now, where, you know, something that appears first in the Ahsoka novel by E.K. Johnson is now appearing, a concept that appeared in the Ahsoka novel could appear in the comics, or, you know, something that was introduced in The Last Jedi could tie back to Rebels or the new Resistance cartoon, and that we'll get these layers of collective storytelling that just end up making the whole bigger than the sum of its parts. Isn't that wonderful?
It is absolutely beautiful and stunning because Legends had a bit of that, but now as canon gets older and we get more and more stories we're seeing, we know how the Star Wars canon is right now, but imagine what it will be 5 years from now.
I know, like
3 years from now.
When my kids are like in it, and I can't wait to see what the storytelling looks like in, like, especially after 9, right? Like a year and a half from now, you know, we'll have this whole new world because it's almost like the world will open up potentially, I think.
I agree. Right now, I think we're in a bit of a transitional period, but once 9, you know, gets told out, I think you'll really see Star Wars explode for different story options. I think if you are watching Star Wars and watching it grow right now, just be a little patient because I truly believe that we are on the cusp of a explosion, if you will.
Exactly. I mean, we're getting the Resistance cartoon, and we're getting the Jon Favreau live action show that's going to be on the streaming service. I suspect we'll get a follow-up 3D animated show from Dave Filoni covering Ezra and Ahsoka and team. Right? Because that those threads are not told. And I know he wants to finish that. We're gonna
And
get...
not only that, but new Forces of Destiny, hopefully.
Oh yeah, and we know Adam Driver recorded for that because they made a toy.
Mm-hmm.
And so we suspect he might be in the Resistance cartoon. Ah!
Yeah, there's just so much. I mean, like I said, I think we're on the cusp, and with the Disney streaming scene, who knows? I know I'm excited for the fiction, but I'm also excited for the behind the scenes. Like, I would like to see a lot of the content from the 2004 DVD, be up on the streaming services, or Leonard Maltin, I think I said his name right, interview on the VHSs.
Oh, the one in the box set? The one from the box set? I watched that as a kid. That was amazing.
Exactly, and I believe that was the only place where you can find it. And I remember that was the first glimpse that we got, I think, at least I did, of the prequels. Like, I remember watching that over and over again, and this was like 96, so it was probably recorded in 95, and you're hearing about Anakin, and you don't know what is going on. Then the prequels came out and stuff like that. Yeah, I saw it like 3 years ahead of time, so... yeah, it would be nice to have all that material and other stuff that has not been released since, since the DVD set, or the R2D2 documentary.
Oh, the mockumentary one where he was like wandering the streets.
Mm-hmm. You could put the Ewok Adventures up there. You could put the droid cartoon. So it might not all be new content, but hopefully we get a lot. Then the Clone Wars animated series. I mean, yeah, you can watch it on YouTube, but
And Clone Wars is on Netflix still, at least in Canada. I don't know if it is still in the US, but yeah, I'm excited for, the potential. Like, what George really did with Dave Filoni and the Clone Wars was take like story arcs and tell like Star Wars as film noir, Star Wars as spy film, Star Wars as, it's almost like he did all these experimental films with the Clone Wars. And I'm just super excited to see what we get from a show perspective. Maybe we'll get direct to streaming service mini movies. That would be such a fun way to take the canon.
It would be. And I would like to clarify that when I brought up the Clone Wars, I was talking about the 2003-2004 series.
Yeah, the one done by
a name I won't even bother pronouncing because I can't pronounce it.
Yeah, he did Samurai Jack as well. Yeah, that stylistic. I actually own it. Oddly enough, on DVD.
As do I, and they are up on YouTube, but it would be all in one place.
Yeah, I mean, Disney already has my money. I mean, as soon as the streaming service is available, it's like, of course, I will give you my money. There wasn't even a doubt. So you mentioned when we first got together or first started chatting, that one of your favorite characters was Dr. Aphra. Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, actually I would, because she's a character right now that I am just falling in. Even though she's not my favorite character, I cannot wait for her comic series because I love what they are doing. For me, it is the freshest storytelling that we are getting right now because it is not conformed by any other. Aphra is a new character. Yes, it has to take place between 3 and 4. And yes, the galaxy is in a place right now that cannot be adjusted, but everything else is free game. And you are not getting that anywhere else in canon right now, it seems like. You have to conform to a different story, like The Last Jedi has to, follow The Force Awakens. Resistance comes before The Force Awakens.
Mm-hmm. So it has the time limit, it has character limit, it has like all of these not problems, but considerations.
And not only that, but Aphra is a character that is like no one else. People call her the female Indiana Jones.
But she's not.
And while that is true,
Yeah, no,
There,
she's more complex than that.
exactly. While that might be true, is there's a lot more layers to it. So when somebody says that she's the female Indiana Jones, that gets you into the door. Once you get into the door and you can see, okay, there's a lot more to this character than just being quote unquote the female Indiana Jones.
Yeah, no, she's awesome. I fell in love with her during the Vader 2015 run, and just how complex she was, how interesting, and like she loves droids, which speaks to my soul. She's well, she steals the stage because she's so interesting. People want more.
Exactly. And not only that, but she is such a diverse character in Star Wars. Like, she's Asian, she's a woman, and she is a. If you read the comic series, she's just not a nice person. She does things to survive, but she isn't beyond turning in for a price like she would. Like, I don't want to spoil the last issue, but she does
Yeah, I'm
something very similar.
behind. Please don't.
Um, So after reading that issue, I had to put the comic down and I had to clap because it was like, yes, that is why I enjoy it. And what I like most about it is that she is all these things, but there's no backlash.
Yeah. Do you want to speak a little bit more about Backlash?
Sure. So whenever a diverse character gets introduced in Star Wars, it seems like there's always some sort of minority that, stir up some drama. Like there was a lot of people that saying he shouldn't be a stormtrooper because he was a black man. There was a lot of people who didn't like girls.
Being Jedi, like what?
And so when there's characters, there was Thrax in the last shot. There was the Aftermath books. There was always a lot of people who always took offense to that and took to the internet and made their opinion known. And not only made their opinion, they attacked people associated with the project. You can have an opinion, fine, but they crossed that line. With Afra, everybody likes Afra. There's no backlash about her being in the role that she is, being an Asian gay woman.
Do you think it's because she's kind of so badass? Like, do you think that, or just people have just kind of come to accept her?
I think that she was established as an awesome character before the established. Her romantic tendencies were hinted at with Sana Sorrows,
Yeah,
but
with
it
Sana.
wasn't
Yeah.
exactly. But it wasn't outright. It wasn't state. It wasn't made known. There was still a lot of uncertainty to it. It wasn't way through her own series that it really became evident that she was who she was. So she was established before she it was known.
But I kind of appreciate that approach. Like, I mean, in real life, diverse people just exist. Like, it's not like it's weird. It's weird that, hey, there hasn't been an Asian lead in Star Wars, before Rose, before Afra. Like, that's the weird thing. I'm not saying this right. I'm sorry, Amanda.
No, it's okay. I completely understand where you're coming from, and I can relate too. And that is why I really enjoy the new take that Lucasfilm is taking on Star Wars, is because we have all these diverse. Yes, it took so long for us to get an African woman on screen, and I'm not a huge fan of how Val was portrayed, but in the I call it the extended canon. In that, the books and the comics, we're seeing we're seeing Iden Versio. I love her, and we're seeing all these diverse characters that it makes the world more diverse. It
and
makes
real.
Exactly.
Real.
But yeah, it's so real, and in a galaxy so far, far away, it's a galaxy story that is so wide and diverse that what does it matter to you if there's a diverse character on screen. It's so big that we can't comprehend it. So what does it matter to you what is being portrayed in that universe? Because even if let's say you are a racist, let's say that for example, right? Right. So if you're watching something and the person that you are racist on screen, what does that matter to you when that's a fictional universe? It shouldn't matter at all.
It shouldn't.
Exactly. So I don't.
I don't. But I mean, I think that, and maybe I'm going to make a generalization here. I think that women get it. Like generally, right? Women get it because let's face it, on screen, we had one woman who was heroic for 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, 23 years, roughly. We had one woman. There was some extended canon and technically Mon Mothma. I'm sorry, but that's just not enough to actually, like, I don't know, identify with. You can't find I couldn't find myself with Leia. So we get it. We get the need. And that's why I think The Last Jedi speaks to so many women is like, oh, look, there's a virtual plethora compared to every other Star Wars movie that has ever existed. This is why we need more stories told so that we can have more stories out there. I am hoping we get the first on-screen LGBTQ plus relationship on screen, at least with the streaming show. Something like we need it in visuals.
I agree 100%. I'm a big shipper of Finn and Poe, and I hope
Storm Pilot.
Yes, I hope that J.J. Abrams touched upon that because there was a lot of talk like a couple years ago about Poe actually being gay. And I would like to see that because somebody needs to see that on screen. Obviously, I don't need to see it but there's somebody like that. And going back a little bit with Leia, like having one woman doesn't cover all of us. Like I really do. But I connected to Padme growing up, and as I just got done mentioning, I absolutely love Aphra. I cannot relate to Aphra, but she's like the woman that I wish I could be. Carefree. BA. And being able to do what she does. But I think I more connect to it. So it's nice having all of these different characters to connect with and being related to because the character that Aphra is the woman that I would like to be. I wish I could be. Jin is the woman who I most connect with. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah.
The character that you like or it might not be the same character that you relate to. So if you have these different characters, as a fan and connect as a fan. Yes, you connect. Yes, you can connect with Luke. Yes, you can relate to Luke, but having somebody on screen, or in a book that you can connect with, it means a lot more than just basically, I was connected with Luke because of my dad.
Yeah, like I always connected with Luke just growing up, as a somebody trying to figure it out. But in modern canon, Bloodline was the book that really hit me. I get Leia in that book so much. I get Leia in the modern canon so much. As a mom, I have fears about, hey, are my kids turning out okay? In Last Shot, Leia and Han call little Ben Solo big guy, and my husband and I literally call my son that. It's like, like I cannot, like I get that, and that's why more storytelling is required to tell this timeless modern myth in new and interesting ways, and also just to give us good stories. Like that's what we need.
And I do want to say one more thing about diversity is when we have diversity represented in fiction, it empowers people. You have somebody who is depressed because they are getting it from everybody in their circles, whether it's racism, whether it's sexism, whatever it may be. If they can connect with somebody in a fiction of a franchise that they like, it empowers them. It inspires them. And when you have a person that is confident, inspired, and is positive, they can be productive, they can be creative, they can be an active member of society. So why do we not want to empower these people? Why do we not want the on screen to? That's the point of having diversity represented. It empowers people, it improves your society. And I'm getting off on a social rant here, but
it's okay. It's a beautiful rant.
It helps grow our society, and it improves the society when you have people who are empowered through representation. So
yeah, I totally agree. And it not only that, but I think it gives people, and this is actually pulling to Star Trek. Whoopi Goldberg being able to see Uhura on screen and say, hey, I can be something, and that's my hope for Star Wars. And I know that they're getting there. It's coming along. We're getting more interesting stories. Did you see the screen caps of the Resistance cartoon?
I have, yeah. I saw it.
I'm looking forward to that. It looks awesome. I don't know. I'm like, okay, pre Force Awakens, we're probably going to get tons of behind the scenes of the First Order, which is my jam. I love like Imperial point of view stories. Like in Rebels, it's just awesome.
Yeah. I was going to say, are you, is the sequel trilogy your jam?
I love all of it. I have really, really loved the sequel trilogy. I think that it, when The Force Awakens, it reawoke my love of Star Wars. I think that that's a pretty common thread for a lot of people. 2015, and things were just really, reawoken in them. I was always into Star Wars. Like I've played the Star Wars role-playing game from a young age, read a fair amount of the EU, but it wasn't always as interesting to me because the characters sometimes, especially the female ones, were described a lot by their appearance rather than by their personality. And I just didn't get that, And I loved the Clone Wars. The Clone Wars was really where I refound Star Wars after the gap of the prequels ending, which I loved as well. I have critiques about how it was executed, but I recently did an episode on how and why I feel like the prequels were so important to tell.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you 100% on that. If I'm a fan of it all myself, I asked you about the sequel trilogy, because I would say the prequel trilogy is more my jam just because of the age like you do. And just like you, I fell in love with Star Wars, or technically my fandom was reawoken with The Force Awakens, and I've been in it ever since. So
yeah, like I don't think it ever went away, but my passion went up to like 11. Which it's just I think it just spoke to me more. Maybe that was just seeing Rey lick the bowl, like this real human who is lovable and has power but doesn't know how to use it and is trying to figure out who she is. I think speaks to a lot of women, and just having new storytelling that cares about the stories of the past. Like, they don't ignore the prequels like some talking heads would have you believe. They mention them deliberately. They call out force concepts like balance and the living force directly from the words that Qui-Gon said in episode 1. So it's not like they're ever ignored the prequels. They're syncing it all up like a beautiful tapestry. I think it's wonderful.
I love Rey. I don't know if I would have had the same degree of my fandom being awoken if it wasn't for Ray, and I'm right there with you. So I can't wait to see what they do in 9. I loved her in 8, and there's just so much to love about Star Wars. And diversity isn't about representation, but the amount of content too. Like you have the sequel trilogy, you have the prequel trilogy, you have the original trilogy, and once we get past 9, you're going to have the Ryan Johnson era.
The Game of Thrones guys.
Yes, yes, exactly. So representation, diversity isn't about just representation, but the amount of content too, like comics, books, games. That they are lacking in when it comes to like the video games. So diversity. When I talk about diversity, it's not just about representation. While that is a very important part of it, it's about the content.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that more wonderful stories. That's all we want, right?
And that's why I love Forces of Destiny. That is an area that they needed to do connected to, because I wish I would have had that growing up, but
Oh
I
yeah.
didn't. But I have it now, and it's something that I hold dear because it is important, and I love that they went there.
It's awesome. And they have the cutest stories. Like we got a Leia and Luke, and Leia's using the lightsaber. And we get like, Chopper and Ewoks. And like I love these little mini stories. They're really awesome.
My favorite ones, like the pork ones, pork one is like my favorite. The one with the Loth cat and Jin is
Oh
one of my
yeah.
favorite. So if it's cute, I love it.
if it has a cute face. So are you gonna be heading to Celebration?
I am, yeah, and it's going to be my first time, and oh my god, I am so excited. I'm nervous because it will be my first time going, but I am so relieved because I didn't think I was going to be able to go traveling to Florida or California. So I'm hyped. I have my ticket. I have family in the area, so I don't have to worry about room. Yeah, I will have to be driving to and from, but I get to go, and I'm excited.
Well, I hope that we get to meet up. I know I'm going, and Ty, my co-host, is going, and as well as James, my other co-host, occasional co-host, is going. So if you are interested in checking out some stuff with us, you are always welcome.
Yeah, I am. I would love that, and I'm looking forward to meeting not only you and
Joanna's coming.
yeah, Joanne. Listeners, if your listeners, whoever they may be, everybody and anybody.
Are you going to be playing Star Wars Destiny there?
Probably, I'm gonna be probably hanging out at the FFG area. I don't know what I'm doing yet. I know that they will probably have a panel and probably learn how to play a demo area if you want to, try out the game and learn how to play. They will have that there, but who knows what will happen at Celebration? Who will look like? Who will know what the layout is? So one thing at a time.
One thing at a time, yes. I just know that the new era of Star Wars is one that I gleefully accept.
Is in a place right now where it hasn't been. It is so diverse in content and representation, but it is also so full of opportunity and places they can go. I don't think they have been in a while.
Yeah, I agree. I'm really excited for the next few years especially. Well, Jedi Geek Girl, thank you for coming on What the Force. Do you want to let people know where they can find you and all of the things that you do? Because the list is long.
Sure. If people like to find me, they can find me on Twitter at Jedi Geek Girl. If people like to find my podcast, about a Star Wars Destiny podcast via any podcaster you may have, whether it's iTunes or Google Play, just search Irabel hyphen a Star Wars and you will be able to find me. If you would like to send me an email, you can do so at irabeldestiny@gmail.com. You can also check out my website, irabeldestiny.com, which basically covers a lot of Star Wars Destiny related stuff. I am also a co-host of the Star Wars Lorecast presented by the Bizzlecast at bizzlecast.com.
Awesome. Thank you for coming on the podcast and just being a wonderful and engaging guest. I love hearing all about your story and all of your thoughts and just kind of fangirling a little bit.
Yeah, I tend to get carried away, but thank you so much for having me. It truly has been an honor.
And this has been What the Force, What the Fandom, Star Wars Destiny with Jedi Geek Girl. We are at whattheforce.ca. Our Twitter is WT4 Show. We are on Facebook at What the Force Podcast. And if you are interested in tuning into the podcast, feel free to look us up at What the Force on any podcatcher, iTunes, Google Play, etc. And if you like the show, please do leave a review. It does help others find the show. Thank you, and feel free to reach out to us and start a conversation. Cheers!